and starting with Berkshire Hathaway. We have chatted about this one on a regular basis, and it's a diversified investment holding company controlled by none other than Warren Buffett.
Yep, everybody's favorite investing granddad. I mean, he's done a tremendous job over many, many years and built up this industrial and insurance conglomerate. He's a past master at identifying, finding value and swooping when the timing seems most appropriate.
Market cap $352.6 billion US dollars, a PE ratio of 15.6 and no dividend yield. Talk to me about Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, so this really is the icon of investment holding companies. It's had its original share price since Warren Buffett got involved, so it's compounded significantly over $100,000 mark in terms of share price. And you mentioned no dividend yield. He feels he's a better investor in terms of investing the cash that's generated by the underlying investments than the average investor.
Well, that's backing yourself for sure.
Exactly.
And a phenomenal track record. What struck me, they came out with their Q3 results. Good numbers from their manufacturing cluster. Utilities did well. Some of the other businesses less, while the insurance businesses took a bit of a breather, but the market liked the results. The shares up quite nicely.
And you would think that that industrial portfolio would kick up on the better GDP numbers coming through from the US on a regular basis.
Yes, but they've got broad exposure globally. They've recently, one of their biggest acquisitions, Precision Car Parts, which has exposure to car parts globally. That did reasonably well. Their food investments also have done well. Wrigley's, they made a nice gain there. But what did strike me is they've got a record amount of cash, $85 billion US dollars, sitting on the balance sheet, which I guess gives you an indication of how he sees market conditions and valuations at the moment.
To that point, how much of their portfolio is global, as you allude to, versus US exposure?
So the bulk of the insurance assets have exposure to the US economy. They have Berkshire Hathaway Reinsurance, which obviously reinsures globally, but they have more recently been diversifying. Kraft is a global foods brand. Wrigley's has a lot of exposure to the US, but also more broadly, Precision Car Parts. So because he's, I guess, maxed out to some extent in terms of the exposure to the US economy, has been diversified.
Paul, I know you don't want to spend too much time on Berkshire Hathaway today.
Look, there's also the listed investment portfolio where he owns big chunks of things like Coke, IBM, and a couple of others. Wells Fargo. Everyone's waiting to see what he's going to say about Wells Fargo because they've been misbehaving, and he's the 10% shareholder there. Look, the problem is, as the thing gets bigger, it gets harder to move the needle. That Precision Cast Parts business that they bought, makes aircraft engines and so on as well, so that's pretty hefty. But when you've got $85 billion of cash on hand, you've got to find really big deals. And, he's getting a little older, him and his partner, Charlie Munger, who's even older than he is. I'm not sure what the end game is here for Berkshire.
Let's have a look at the performance before we call this one.
It tends to track the market plus a bit. Some years it does a bit better than the S&P 500, other years a little worse. It's certainly the assets themselves judiciously chosen. I mean, even those rail assets, he's the biggest owner of railway operators in the continental US.
Are you a Buffett disciple?
I think in terms of his investment principles and ideas, certainly, and Charlie Munger as well is a very clever investment thinker. In terms of the actual underlying Berkshire Hathaway, I agree with Paul. It's got too big. It's a bit of a leviathan. It's hard to move the needle. So take the ideas, take the principles, and implement them elsewhere.
Hot or not, Rowan?
Not.
Paul?
Look, I think ultimately it's going to come apart when Buffett retires, in the sense that he stops actually running it, because he can't run it forever. Then I think the sum of the parts will be worth more than the whole at the moment. But for now, I'm going to go not hot. I think there are better entry points globally, yeah.